Well, good morning. It's Wednesday, time for our couples devotional. Remember that last week we finished our first principle, which is love is a choice, not just a feeling. Today we're going to talk about our second principle, which is trust is earned, not freely given. Now, a lot of people misunderstand what trust is all about, so I want to define that for you this morning. Trust, by definition, is relying on the integrity, strength, or ability of another person. Notice that the basis of trust is about relying on someone else and what they offer. So trust is really a very reactionary response. And I think a lot of people think that trust is something that we within ourselves, we're either a trusting person or not a trusting person. And that's totally our own issue. But what we have to recognize, especially in marriage, that you should trust as your spouse proves to be trustworthy. So again, trust is a reactionary response. You react to what you see in your spouse. And that's very important in understanding how trust works in your marriage.
The book of Proverbs gives us some great instruction on this. In Proverbs 14, here's what it writes in verse 7. He says, "Stay away from a fool, for you will not find knowledge on their lips." And in verse 8, "The wisdom of the prudent is to give thought to their ways, but the folly of fools is deception." In other words, what the author is saying is you need to be wise and cautious about who you're connecting to and who you are relating to, and basically saying don't trust just anyone. So blind trust is certainly not a biblical value. The Bible teaches us that we should be very wise and cautious. A little bit later on in chapter 14, it says, "The simple believe anything, but the prudent give thought to their steps." And in verse 18, "The simple inherit folly, but the prudent are crowned with knowledge." And so again, and this is just one example, all over Scripture, it talks about being wise in the decisions you're making. And basically it's coming back to this principle in our marriage that trust is something that you have to earn. You don't just freely dole it out, that you'd be foolish to just trust anybody. So in our marriages, what that means is obviously if you're married already, you need to work on becoming a trustworthy person so that your spouse can trust you more. Don't make your spouse into a fool by making them just blindly trust you. So you have to be the person who is trustworthy, and then your spouse can trust you more. So we see that trust is not like forgiveness, and we'll look at forgiveness next week. Forgiveness is something you should freely give, but trust is something that must be earned by the other person, not freely given. So take some time today and discuss, if you're going over this with your spouse, discuss some of these questions and then spend some time in prayer with one another. See you next week.